Okay, hello, how are you?
I'm wonderful, ready for the fantasy playoffs. I hope you made it, Hannah. Did you make it to
Oh,
the playoffs?
honestly, this season has gone from bad to worse. And naturally, I was up against Tyreek Hill this week. I had Deshaun Watson, so I started really strong on Thursday. My opponent almost conceded. He was like, "This is going to be terrible," and things have changed since then. So it's not been great for me, but it's fine. I'm looking forward to the draft next year in a high draft position.
Oh, I can't believe that you're thinking about next year already. I think your opponent isn't that great. I'll just say that. I'll just leave it. We'll just leave it right there.
I appreciate the loyalty. Well, first of all, I want to talk to you about COVID chaos. We had it across the league this week. We had it with fantasy, people scrambling to figure out their lineups on Sunday. We've got the challenge over here in the UK that this Steelers Ravens game is 1 o'clock in the morning. So it's like, how late do you check your lineup if you've got those players? This might continue to happen. We hope it doesn't, but it might keep happening over the next few weeks. So what's your advice for sort of dealing with this? Is it making sure you've got plenty of players from different teams on your bench, or is it just riding that waiver wire as much as you can?
I think at this point it might just be that. I really hope everybody over there listened to me on Good Morning Football when you were doing your drafts to really urge your commissioners to come up with contingency plans, whatever that is. A backup when you know that Lamar Jackson isn't playing, you right away are the first person to get RG3 in your lineup or whatever it might be. Another quick and easy way to make a change, whether you play on NFL Fantasy or ESPN, wherever, is to just go in and add roster spots, add the designated COVID spots. I think you can add up to maybe 8 spots. And then grab at straws with waiver wire matchups and just sort of hope for the best. We all knew going into this that this was a possibility, and these shakeups are going to happen. Going into this week's action, this past week, with that game being postponed, I would have definitely started, over Benny Snell once James Conner was ruled out. I wouldn't have waited on Benny Snell without knowing that game's going to happen. I would have wanted to put a Wayne Gallman in there. I would have wanted to put a Jordan Wilkins in there. So always go for. I'm just more of a safe fantasy player. I want to go with the sure thing. If they're playing and they're sort of within 10 spots of each other on whatever rankings you look at, I'm playing the guy that's surefire going to be out there.
Good advice as always. Right, let's talk week 12 fantasy performances then, starting with a certain Mr. Tyreek Hill. Casual, 13 receptions, 269 receiving yards, 3 receiving touchdowns. He put up 203 of those yards in the first 14 minutes of the game. What a performance.
A beautiful, brilliant performance that's going to get people and knock people out of the fantasy playoffs, of course. We always talk about who's the best wide receiver, and we hear from DeAndre Hopkins, and we hear from Devontae Adams, even Keenan Allen, all of those players. We don't hear Julio Jones, obviously. We do not hear about Tyreek Hill. I don't know if it's because he's slight or not as big, but when you think wide receivers, he has to be in that conversation. Such a nice performance. It is wild to me that now he and Travis Kelce, both Chiefs players, different positions, they're number 1 and number 2 in receiving in the NFL. I don't know that since I've started watching football years and years and years ago, that's ever been the case with a tight end and a wide receiver combo on the same squad.
Derrick Henry as well, in terms of top of the pile of running backs, 178 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns. He pulled the whole Colts defense with him to let Ryan Tannehill in for the score. We don't have assist points like we do in the Premier League fantasy football, but maybe we should. I mean, he is just on fire this season.
He is. I think he has something like 7 100-yard games. He's very much in the conversation for MVP, sort of snagging that away from Alvin Kamara if you're considering running backs for that award. It was huge that the Colts didn't have DeForest Buckner. They couldn't contain him in any way. I think if Defoe was out there, it might be a bit of a different story. The game would have been more competitive. But Derrick Henry, when he gets going, it's hard to stop him at his size, at his speed. It doesn't really make sense from a physics perspective. But this is his time to shine. It gets to this point in the season, it was him and Dalvin Cook sort of battling it out for the rushing title, and Dalvin didn't have a great game as far as yardage is concerned, and Derrick Henry is way ahead now.
Certainly is. He thankfully is not someone that I was up against in fantasy this week, but every other week I feel like he appears wherever I am. We're heading into the final week of regular season of fantasy football now. Who would your sort of Hail Mary selections on the waiver wire be this week to really cement that playoff spot?
Well, the Giants they're on top of the NFC East, and nobody really looks at them. And I know Daniel Jones is banged up and he might not be around for the next couple of games. Wayne Gallman, I don't really understand the lack of love for him, the fact that he's available in like 40% of leagues still. He scores touchdowns, he gets the touches, he looks good. it's crazy that he's still there. So I would definitely take Wayne Gallman. You want him to be owned. I wrote down a couple for you. Alan Lazard looked good. He's back. He's healthy. One of my favorite players in the NFL. And I think just the way that Aaron Rodgers is wheeling and dealing. The Packers have put up 40 points against every divisional opponent this season. That's insane that's happening. So Alan Lazard, I think, should be owned. Deebo Samuel looked absolutely incredible for the Niners and their amazing win over those Rams. And I would say Kirk Cousins. It's always hard to trust him, but I trusted Derek Carr last week against the Falcons, thinking it's a perfect matchup. It didn't happen. I'm looking at Kirk Cousins' ownership right now, 21.7% rostered. It's the Jaguars this week, Hannah. Coming off back-to-back 300-yard, 3-touchdown games, I think I would trust Kirk Cousins in the first week of my fantasy playoffs, and that's just 2020.
Okay. Awesome stuff, as always. I'm going to go and see if Kirk Cousins is available in a league and see if I can sneak in there in one of my 2 leagues.
No, Hannah, because every time I tell you to do something and you do it, and it explodes in our faces. Like this is not.
It's fine, Kay. I purposely haven't brought up Zeke Elliott or CD Lamb in this chat today. It's fine.
I love you. Sending love from New York. Stay safe.
And to you.